got it.
Welcome, Josh.
Oh, man.
That's for you.
All right. Well,
Hi, guys.
no, we don't need them until the end.
So excited to be here with you. As I was preparing for our time together today, I just was asking the Holy Spirit to just be with us, to be with all of us, to do what he wants to do and speak to all the hearts, and just that you guys would all leave here feeling more encouraged than you were when you walked in, that you would all walk away with something to take with you and that would impact you and bless your life. So thanks for letting us come and chat with you guys. We're the Spurlocks, Josh and Cassie. We've been married for 19 years. We've started a counseling company pretty much 19 years ago, and we've done foster care and adoption ministry for about 18 years. So our kiddos, we've adopted 5 out of the foster care system, 5 teenage girls. They're all grown. They have families of their own now. So yeah, it's a little bit about us.
Yeah. It is fun to be here with you. Like Cassie mentioned, in our counseling ministry, we care for about 1,000 families a month right now. And about 20% of those are ministry families. We're going to really have specialized in taking care of pastors and missionaries that are spread out all over the country and all over the world. So at any given point in time, we've got 200 plus pastors and folks in ministry that we are helping navigate through the challenges that come with life and come with ministry. And in the context of doing that, you'll learn a few things. You spend a few thousand hours working with folks that are in the grind and in the trenches, front lines of doing ministry work. And you see patterns in the challenges that are faced and the things that tend to lead to burnout for folks or explosion for folks, and the what we call rhythms of renewal that help people avoid burnout or blow up in ministry. So that's really what we want to talk about today. And if there's one thing that I could get you to take away from this time, like it was just one thing I could get you to take action on from our time together, it would be a mind shift to preventative care, to being proactive around your wellness and these rhythms of renewal. That we tend to get so head down in doing the work of the ministry that we don't kind of step back to evaluate our own well-being until we reach a place of crisis. And then the wheels start falling off the bus, and then suddenly it's like, oh man, something is not okay. I'm not okay, or something my family's not okay. And then we step back and start kind of evaluating what's happening, what's going wrong here. But there are actually things that we can do and engage to prevent from being in that place. And so my wish, want, hope would be for you to be intentional in stepping back and go, what would it mean for, instead of being reactive, for me to step back and think about what it is to be proactive in these different areas. And I'd like to give you a challenge in that right out of the gate, some homework to doing this. Because I believe if there's something, if this idea resonates with you, that it could be a good thing to be proactive instead of reactive in life. Does that seem like heretical or like a bad idea? You're like, nah, I shouldn't do that. Okay, so all right, so if that resonates and you think that's actually a useful thing to do, I would encourage you to take an action step in that. Right? When I hear something that I think, yeah, that's that could be a good thing for me, I think I should do that, then a discipline I've developed is going, so what does it look like for me to take a baby step in that direction? Like, how do I put legs to that, action to it somehow? And this is what I would recommend, and I'm actually going to give you an opportunity to take the baby step before this baby step right now, and that would be to identify a person in your life. Could be a mentor, could be a colleague, friend, somebody that you have like a vulnerable relationship with, somebody that you can be real with and have real conversations with. And for you to have a conversation with that person about what it means to be proactive in guarding your ministry, guarding your well-being, the space. I just want you to have a conversation. And the thing I want you to do right now, if you got a pen, piece of paper, something, is I'm going to take 30 seconds and for you to just think who that person might be. Who in your life can you have a vulnerable conversation with about what it means for you to be proactive in guarding your ministry, guarding your well-being, these rhythms of renewal that we're going to talk about. So here's your 30-second little. We got it? Got kind of the person? Okay. So that's your homework. Just wanted to get that out of the way out front here. And also say the pieces we're going to talk through, we've got a handout to send out with you. I'm not going to give it to you now because I don't want you to be distracted by it. But it's got everything that we're going to talk about and a bunch more stuff also. And our friend Ellie back here shooting a video that we're going to put up so that if you want to reference back to it or you've got somebody that couldn't be here and they want to see it, then you can be able to do that also. But that's the out of the gate challenge for you. The next question is, what about sports? Can we change gears just a little bit? All right. Anybody watch Super Bowl? Yeah, yeah. Football is a really brutal sport, right? You ever watch that? And just kind of notice that you've got athletes at the top of their game and they're pushing their bodies to their limits every time they step out on the field because the competition is so stiff. And the activity that they're engaging in inherently is damaging. Like, you cannot play professional football without getting injured. Like, it's wounding. It's just part and parcel with the game. When we talk about a football player being injured, what we mean is that they are so badly injured that they can't play. Like, they're sidelined, they're taken out of the game. We're like, oh, they're injured. No, they were injured, whether they played the whole game and had the best game of their life or not. They walked off with a limp then, and their body being battered, bruised, muscles being, overextended. Like, they're injured by the very nature of the game that they're playing. And so how is it that they do that time and time again? Like, how is it that they don't play one game and then just retire or roll over and die? Like, how do they beat up and be brutalized again and again and again? And the secret to it lies in their rhythms of renewal that they engage from the moment they step off the field till they step back on it again. Like, they have very intentional practices that they engage in order to bring healing to their body, to rejuvenate their muscles, to restore them to a place of health and well-being so that they're able to get back out on the field again. And if they were not very strategic and intentional about how they go about doing it, they would not last very long. They would break down and be out of the game very quickly. So I think there's a lesson to be learned in that. Like, the work that we do in the trenches, the ministry, no matter where you fit in the kingdom, what role you play, is inherently damaging. Like, there's a real enemy of your soul that's got you under attack and is intentionally coming against you to undermine your well-being and your effectiveness in ministry. Like, the being with people who are hurting and who are broken is intentionally or is inherently damaging to us. We have a language for this in the helping field. In the clinical world, we talk about secondary trauma as a word that's used. And this is the word for the impact that it has on you as a helping person as you're helping people. Like, just by engaging in that care for others, it has an impact on your own body, your own nervous system, your own soul, inherently in the process of doing it. And no one is immune to this. Like, we always like to think of ourselves as the exception, like burnout is something that happens to other people. Yeah. Like people blowing up their ministry or blowing up their life, that's something that happens to other people. That somehow we're like qualitatively different in our material or makeup than people that have those experiences in life. And it's a super dangerous mindset because we don't prepare for that which we place in the category of impossible. Like I am so ill-equipped for a zombie apocalypse, it's not even like real. Like seriously, I don't have the hats.
Far less equipped than Nate.
I know, right? I need some notes. I need some points. I don't have the hats. I don't have the tools. I don't have the I'm toast. There's a zombie apocalypse because I put it in this category in my brain of things that I don't think is really a real thing. I don't think it's possible. So I don't take seriously preparation against it. When we place something in the category of something that doesn't happen to people like me, but things that happen to other people, then we don't take the intentional preparatory steps in order to avoid what could be avoided. So, I don't. Maybe it's a bad illustration because zombie apocalypse. I mean, I really do think they're impossible. But burnout, let me tell you for sure, an explosion of your life and your ministry is a very real thing. I've had a front row seat to it hundreds and hundreds of times in my career. And so, back to the beginning and starting point. Don't try to defy gravity. Don't think that the secondary trauma that affects other people who give their life to caring for others and supporting the work of the ministry, that somehow isn't going to affect you or that you can escape the impact of that and you don't need to worry about it or be intentional in thinking about it. So do we have everybody's attention?
And not to be discouraging, right?
Right.
But just looking at the data, looking at life experience, looking at behind the curtain of what's portrayed publicly versus what is actually seen on our couch, on our screen, and wanting to equip the church, the body, to take care of ourselves and therefore take care of what we're serving.
Yeah. Proverbs says the wise person sees danger ahead and takes refuge. And the foolish person goes blindly on and suffers the consequences or suffers harm from doing that. And so we all want to be wise in the room. And I want to kind of hold up the big banner of saying, danger ahead for every single one of us. It's inevitable if we don't do things that take refuge. Like it's not will you face burnout, it's when you face burnout. It's not if you will have things break down or blow up in your life. It's when that happens, if you don't see the danger ahead and take refuge. Like you can't outsmart it or get around it. So with that, let's talk a little bit about, if that's the bad news, let's talk a little bit about the good news, right? What are the things that we can do that help us not end up in that space?
Great news, we have control of these.
We do. It's very controllable. There's lots of stuff. So, you want to go first, or you want me to tip off some of these?
You can tip off.
All right. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about relationships. Now, maybe this seems like I'm preaching to the choir here a little bit, but there's a risk that folks in ministry have because we're oftentimes around a lot of people and we're actually serving a lot of people and we actually have a lot of vulnerable conversations with a lot of people that we can feel like all of our relational need is met. And because I'm around people all the time. Like how can I and of not have my relational needs or relational nourishment be fulfilled if I'm with people all the time, serving people all the time. We actually have these really vulnerable conversations. What can happen when we're working with people is we get really good at pouring out to others. We get really good at bearing others' burdens. We get really good at kind of facilitating community and connection. And while ourself really struggle to allow others to, in a genuine way, bear burdens with us and the struggles and the burdens that we're bearing. We engage in relationship as part of our work, but actually don't have very much space in our life where we engage in things that are just life-giving for us, that are restorative in nature, that we are uh, have so many people vying for our attention and wanting time with us for different things that we are not intentional about the spending time with the people that are life-giving to us and that invest in and build in us. And so we can have this false sense of like relationship and relational connection in our life and that our needs are met when in reality we can be close to E on our own tank and not even realize it. And we can wake up and find ourselves in this place where we feel lonely and we feel disconnected and we feel, even though we're with people all the time and are like engaging kinds of conversations all the time. And so part of this rhythm of renewal is about being very intentional about the different kinds of relationship that we have in life and making sure that in the pie graph of time that we have, 24 hours a day, in that space, in the hours in a week, that we are being intentional about allocating time to be with people that are life-giving for us and are actually fill the tank so that our cup overflows, and out of the overflow of our cup, we're able to pour into and invest in others. And the proactive step in that is stepping back and asking that question of all the time that I spend with people, what are the relationships and what are the time that I walk away from and I really feel filled up and I feel energized, not just accomplished, right? Because sometimes we can get a dopamine hit off of we were with somebody and we helped them overcome a thing and we feel like accomplished and yeah, I showed up well for Jesus and that, and I helped this person. I feel good about that. And that's valuable and good. I'm not diminishing that. I'm just saying it's not the same, that feeling accomplished in doing it, as that filled up and renewed sense when you have been with somebody in a way that you feel poured into.
In a way that you're not on. Like that
Right.
being with this person is easy, that you know you can take off every mask, that you can say the things that are really on your heart or on your mind, even about your work, even about the people that you might be ministering to. Now, obviously, we want to be very careful and mindful and wise with this group, with this small group of people that we would take off all the things. But it has to, in order for our souls to really feel nurtured in that space, we have to have those kind of relationships. And a lot of times it's outside of our work, which we love the people that we work with. I hope you do. I hope you guys all enjoy working together. I think God wants
Most
that.
of
I
them, or
think it's
some of them.
good. I think it's important. But you need people in your life that you're not responsible to or responsible for.
And that can be really tough because, again, time is short. Like one of the biggest obstacles to people in ministry engaging in these rhythms of renewal is it requires very intentionally allocating time to do these things. None of these things can be accomplished without time. That's spoiler alert. You're going to go through these rhythms of renewal. All of them take time. And all of us are time stretched in this place of we feel like we don't have enough time in that. And yet the Lord would say to us, I have given you enough hours in the day to do everything that's important to me that you would do. Not necessarily everything that you think you need to do, not necessarily enough time to do everything others think you should do, but for everything that's important to him that you would do, he has given you more than sufficient time for it. And so it requires this proactive conversation about stewardship of time, where we step back and go, if I accept as true that the purposes that you planned for me since before time began, you have allocated me the right amount of time for all those things, and you aren't expecting anything of me, asking anything of me that you haven't allocated the sufficient resources for, then how do I divvy up this pie of time? Like, how do I allocate resources and allow the Spirit to lead you through that proactive process of being intentional and thinking about, how do I make space in my life for these things? Who do I need to say no to? Who are the things, the good things that I need to eliminate from my life to make space for the best things and the right things? Because the enemy of the best, the enemy of the right is the good. There's always more good things than you could ever possibly do or engage in. But just because something is good doesn't mean that it's the right thing that the king wants you to use your time on. And so stepping back, having those conversations. So I think there's like 7 or 8 rhythms that we've outlined here in this. And we'll leave this up here. If you want a copy, grab a copy. You don't have to fill the landfill.
Get your
and take
readers.
a copy if
I
you
think
don't
it's
want
like
one.
10-point font. So
And we'll
you
put
got
the
this.
PDF up also with the video so you can pull that. But I don't want to just kind of monologue at you up here about all these different pieces. I would really love to take some time and just hear from you, what are the questions or thoughts that you have around rhythms of renewal? What are the questions or the thoughts that you would have for some people that have sat with many, many, many people who have faced some really hard things in ministry and have helped them through those pieces? So I want to make space for that and for us to kind of respond and talk through those things. So who's going to be brave and ask us a question?
The first question. That starts the machine.
What are warning signs that you see most commonly that people have?
Oh, well,
Go ahead.
pipe in. Yeah, so some of these will seem self-evident, but you won't notice them if you don't take time to slow down and reflect on how you're actually doing. And a lot of times the people around you are better at spotting these things than you are. And so you've got to be inviting people you trust that are spend enough time with you to see these things, to be able to identify them in your blind spots. But something that's just like fatigue. Like you find yourself in this just place of, man, it is just like, I got to work hard to muster the energy just to get through all the things that I got to do in the course of the day. And I just feel like, that's a huge chore in and of itself. That when our emotional and mental and physical energies are depleted and they're not adequately, our cup's not adequately full, we're just like tired, and we feel it. And so, and sometimes out of that, some of these other things show up. Like we just can respond in ways that are out of characteristic for ourselves. And we're just shorter or more irritable, or people that we love or close, like we kind of find ourselves maybe showing up well in our ministry context when we're on. We got the face on and we're doing the thing, and that, but in our private moments or the people that are close to us, we don't just not really showing up well in those contexts because we just don't have it in us to do that.
I think isolating, like thinking, am I carrying something that I'm not sharing with somebody that's close to me? Is it weighing me down? Is it constantly on my mind? Do I want to go home and climb into my jammies every night because I'm so exhausted and I don't want to face any more people today for any other reason when we really need those connective relationships to restore us.
Yeah. We lose passion around some things that we previously were passionate about. And we just don't do those things or make time to hang out with those people anymore. We just kind of start to have diminished interest in things that used to be something we were excited about. Yeah.
Mhm.
Physical pain, yep, showing up, sickness in our body. Find yourself being sick, finding yourself with aches and pains within our body because our body's just, again, depleted. And emotional things can, we call it somatizing, but it shows up in physical symptoms within our body, suppresses our immune system, so we get sick more frequently and more easily. Difficulty sleeping or trouble not sleeping, or there's difficulty getting to sleep, staying asleep, or difficulty where you're sleeping all the time and find yourself sleeping all the time. Either extremes can be indicators. It's there. Changes in like sex drive. Where you're just not interested in connecting sexually with your spouse, and or find yourself leaning in. This is a long list, but leaning into all sorts of kind of distraction type stuff, doom scrolling on the phone or Netflix and those places, maybe drinking alcohol in ways that are uncharacteristic for you as a way of kind of numbing, binge eating, all sorts of pathways of self-soothing to the nervous system that are really unhelpful, that maybe in moderation and in their own context are not inherently evil or bad, but become this way of getting away from the distress that I'm feeling in my nervous system through those different kind of distraction mechanisms. Work actually can become one of those things also, where we get so kind of depleted, we distract ourselves from that depletion by just leaning into the things that we know to do and work, and can find ourselves working when we should be doing Sabbath. Is that helpful? All right.
Question.
Yeah.
Nope.
I really like the illustration of the football player where they're on the field and then when they're off they're rejuvenating. But what's hard for me, and I don't think I'm alone in feeling this, but like ministry, it feels different because there isn't like a playing field, because it's not like we feel like Saturday night and Sunday morning or Wednesday night is our playing field. It's kind of like everything feels like a playing field
Yes.
to me.
Yep.
And I would love for like work to feel like work and home to feel like rejuvenating. But my home doesn't. My home feels like a playing field too.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because I've got multiple kids and I've got. I mean, there's a lot of responsibilities pulling at me at home too.
Yes.
So that's what I struggle with, and I don't think I'm alone. But maybe the question could be just how do I just find I totally want to rejuvenate.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so
I
but
believe
I don't feel
it.
like
I
can
want to do
find it at home or at work.
Yep.
It's like I gotta find someplace outside of it. But then whenever I do that, it's like I feel like I'm stealing. I'm not really stealing time from work. I'm stealing time from home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's hard. So, sorry, long question.
No.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think, that everybody feels that probably. And I definitely have felt that as a foster parent, especially having kiddos in my home all the time. And I appreciate you naming the reality of sometimes home is work also. Like whether it's, ministry, whatever, it's effort, it's emotional output. And so I think just naming that very real reality is helpful to start off with. Something that we used to do that was when our kids were small and we had foster kids at home was every single Saturday night, we took a date night. And we made that a priority. And I know that can be challenging or tricky, but I would say that was something that kept us connected and was incredibly valuable. I can't imagine what life would have been like if we had not had that one specific rhythm during the week. And I would challenge everybody to get creative about what that can look like. There are lots of ways to get a date night, and it doesn't have to be, the perfect vision of it. It's just opportunity to get away, be one-on-one as couples. So I'll speak to that aspect as husband and wife in that space.
Yeah. As I think people in ministry, more so than uh, maybe any other category of people, are really bad at Sabbath. I know that sounds maybe weird, right? Because we're like all about facilitating Sabbath spaces and experiences for the community, but we ourselves tend to be the worst abusers, and when it comes to Sabbath. And I think one of the things that is maybe uncomfortable, but a useful tool is, I sometimes tell folks, if you don't feel like you're being at least a little bit lazy, then you're probably not actually doing Sabbath right. And like oftentimes one of the things that you described here is we trade work, and like we have our job, we have maybe our ministry or work that we're doing, and then we come to Saturday and we have the household chores and stuff that we're doing. It's not rest, it's not Sabbath, it's not renewal, it's just a different kind of work. It's a domestic household kind of work instead of our job income, day job that we're engaged in. Or we're in that kind of parenting role where we are kind of going and doing all the things and the needs for the kids. And it's not Sabbath, it's not rest, it's not restorative, it's just a different kind of work that we're doing. And so if we actually got honest and sat down and evaluated our schedule about how much Sabbath rest we actually have, if we don't just take days that we're not at our normal job, but actually look at all the different kinds of work that we engage, most of us would be like, I don't have a lot of Sabbath in my life at all, which is probably indicative of some of the what you're feeling in terms of the drain and burnout, because God designed us for this real need to have like real rest. And you see our tendency to violate that, and yet it's so important for us that's why there was an Old Testament law around it. Like it was like drag you out of town and stone you kind of serious. Like, no. And we're like, wow, isn't that a little bit extreme, Lord? But look at us. Like if we didn't have like some serious kind of pushing us to create those boundaries, we're all so prone to kind of fill every nook and cranny with it and to not actually give ourselves the amount of Sabbath necessary for us to be whole and for us to show up well with our family and to show up in our work and to show up in our ministry from a full cup kind of place. And so I think the solution around that, it's like, okay, that's true, maybe that's a problem, whatnot. So what do we do about that, right? And I think when you're married in particular, it's a teamwork sort of piece. We have to have this conversation with each other of being able to go, can we be honest about our schedule and just look at a week and identify how much Sabbath do you and I actually have? Like not just trading different kinds of work or categories of work that we're engaged in, but how much space do you feel like you have in your week? Inviting your spouse to kind of inventory and go through, like, well, maybe here, maybe I get some quiet time in this space, and you know, and you know, have the conversation about how do we work together about creating space for us both to have real Sabbath in our life. What would that even mean and look like if I wasn't just trading categories of work, but actually looked for play activities? Because God cares about play. I could talk to you all day about how God cares about play and how important it is for you. And that, what are the things that are play for me? Who are the people that when I'm with, I just fill my cup feeling full? And where do I make space to be with them and carve that out? And so discover what those things are and invite the Holy Spirit to lead you in a process of discovering what those things are for you. And then have real honest conversations, either with yourself, if you're single, with your spouse, if you're married, about what that looks like in each of your life and how you can be intentional working together to find solutions to that. So get together and agree, this is important and we need this. And I don't just want this for me and not for you. I believe God needs it, wants it, intends it for both of us. What do we do about that? How can we make a plan to that end?
And I would say invite others that might have ideas for you into
Mhm.
your life or might want to support you. Like, hey, we'll take your kids. one afternoon a month. I
Tag
think
team.
sometimes as people that are so used to pouring out and helping others, it can feel so vulnerable for us to receive help from others. Or maybe that help doesn't look like our perfect ideal of what it could look like. And so then we're like, oh, well, maybe that's not actually what I'm supposed to do. God's like, I'm sending you help right now. Would you please take it?
Yeah, that's, I find one of the real hard things for me in that is allowing myself to receive and accept from others. That there are people in my life who'd be willing to help in different ways and help create that space, and I don't ask.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a burden to them, right? That I'm all about bearing others' burdens with them, because I feel like that's what we're supposed to do. But I fail in allowing others to bear the burden with me.
For it to cost them something.
Yeah, it will cost
to
them
work as
something.
a team.
That's okay. Yes. Oh.
Is there space? So as I think about this, and you said for us to identify people, so is that just outside of work? Does the rhythm and repair happen outside of work? Because especially in ministry, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're coming into work, if you are struggling, if you are flagging, do you bring that to talk at work and be like, man, I'm really struggling, or this has been a really deep, hard time for me? Because I think universally across the board, people will be like, well, it's not an option. It's not an option for you to not show up to any job
Mhm.
if you're struggling. But I think I agree, in ministry we are feeling, wow, I can't not show up.
Yeah.
Kids are depending on me.
Yeah.
So where do those two come together, and how do we meet that when someone is in a place of
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's really important for you to share those spaces at work. It's so important for you to be real with the people around you and bear each other's burdens in the workplace too. And that helps everybody to know where each other is, support each other, be more effective in what you're doing. And I think to different degrees and levels of based on your relationship with that person. I think additionally, it's important to have somebody that's outside of work that you can talk to about work things that are hard. I mean, of course, we want you to talk to the work people. That's important. That's what we do as adults and healthy, mature Christians. But we also need that outlet just to say, I'm so mad about such and such, in a way that we wouldn't say it to that person because we care about the integrity of our relationship with them. But we need a place for these emotions to go so that we can then go back and process them well with the people in our life.
Pretending like we don't have hard feelings don't make them not be there. We got to have real people that we can process them through with. And the balance of having it both in your work context as well as having, again, those relationships, like Cassie was saying, that you are neither accountable for nor accountable to. Those friendships that you have outside of the work context are also super important also. So it's a yes and, it's a both of those pieces. And some of the same things that make this hard in our personal life make it hard in our professional life also, because some of the hard decisions that we have to make in our personal life mirror hard decisions we have to make in our professional life, meaning there are more good things to do than we could possibly do. And oftentimes we get out of balance because we're saying yes to too many things. And it's so hard to say no to some things because they're good things. They're not inherently bad or evil, but we don't have the resources to do them. And we stretch ourselves too thin in a way that has an impact that we can't escape.
I was curious, in your study, have you found that unprocessed emotions, like you just talked about, Cassie, actually create chemical buildup in our body that's toxic?
For sure.
100%.
Yeah.
So then when you're looking for somebody that's healthy, that you're not responsible to or for, how have you guys looked for those people? And then how do you clarify on the front end that this is what that relationship is for, from your perspective?
Yeah. So 2 questions. Yeah, those are, 3 questions. That's okay, because they're all related and they're all really good for each other. The first thing I want to say is speak to the emotions piece and the unresolved things, because this is a key thing. Oftentimes we can be avoidant just in our life. Like we've had parts of our story where we've been wounded, we've experienced hurts, and like just don't want to deal with that. I just kind of put it over here. And oftentimes in difficult seasons of ministry, they come in rapid fire. And so there's not even time to give them their due and processing through. You know, you go through season, you have friends leave, or you go through like a COVID season and everything's a mess. And there's so many things at once, and it just kind of gets stuffed in a box, but it doesn't go away. Those unresolved things, they stay in our nervous system. And the best analogy I know for the effect that this has is everybody in here have a smartphone? Yeah, pretty universal, right? What happens on your phone when you have 100 applications open? Yeah, it just runs slow, because even though you may have whatever app you have open on the screen at the moment, they're still there behind the scene. They're still open on the screen, and they're using resources open in the background, and they cause it to be slow and not work right and have problems. And you're like, what's going on? And then you do that little scroll up and you're like, oh, I've got 1,100 things open here. I bet if I close some of these, this thing will work better. Our nervous system is very much like that. And when we have these traumatic experiences that we've had in life, which are not necessarily just huge, what we think of as big T trauma kinds of stuff, but just the hard, unresolved, relational pieces, or, with people within the ministry or colleagues or a spouse or all these kind of unresolved things, they are open in the background of our nervous system, consuming resources that take away from our being present and the resources that we have available in the present moment. And so if we have to close the loop on those things. We have to be willing to create space to close the loop on those things. Otherwise, they continue to build up toxicity, like I said, in our system in a way that creates all sorts of problems for us. So yes to that all day long. Next question was about finding people to engage that, right? So understand that this is a universal need. You, me, all of us have these needs for rhythms of renewal that we're talking about. We have these needs for relationships to process things through in life. And so your friends and people who you like have this also. And they probably, more than likely, don't have a sufficient amount of relationships in their life right now that are trying to be intentional about these things. And so find a buddy, find somebody that you like. They don't have to be like far superior to you in maturity to be able to be like, hey, I have this need in my life and these things that I struggle to make space for in my life and be proactive around, but I'm really feeling convicted like I need to do that. Do you ever experience that also? Oh, good, you do too. Can we work together to be proactive around having these conversations? And asking ourselves the questions about the areas of our life, that the things that maybe Jesus has told us we need to say no to and we just haven't yet. Like, I don't know if you've had this experience or not, but there was a season in my life where I was we're building the counseling practice. I was working a ton of hours with that. We had foster kiddos at home, and they were high need, and we were caring for them. And we had our own biological children, were young and had their needs. And it was just maxed out. And we were leading the small group for church because we believe in small group ministry, right? That's how a big church feels small. That's how intimate relationships are made. It's the thing we're supposed to do, right? And I felt like Jesus told me that I was supposed to stop leading the small group that we were leading and instead to use that time space to play board games with the foster kiddos that we had in our home. And for 6 months, I was like in disobedience around that because I just could not imagine myself going to my friend who's a small groups pastor and being like, I don't think I'm gonna lead a small group. I think I'm supposed to do something else said. And the Lord convicted me, just got up in my grill and was like, hey Josh, how long are you gonna walk in disobedience in this? Like, you don't get any extra credit for doing what I didn't ask you to do. In fact, you're defrauding this thing that is important for me to spend time on by doing this other thing, and you're doing it in my name. Like, how long are you going to keep that up, Josh? And I just had to break down and go have the conversation. Of course, my friend was like, do what you got to do, man. Be obedient to the Lord. I'm like, I know it's all me. It's my stuff getting in the way. But it requires having hard conversations with and being that prayerful about and having accountability with somebody else who's getting serious about this in their life also, and going, what are the things the Lord's telling you that you need to say no to? What are the hard conversations that you need in order to create margin in your life to actually lean into restorative things? Who are the people and relationships that are getting defrauded that God wants you to be spending time in investing that you're not, because you're saying yes to these other things? Like, we can't do that journey on our own. We got to have others that we do it with. Otherwise, it ain't going to happen. Like, we just can't. So, is that helpful? All right.
That was one of 7.
Yeah, there's some.
Guys, you have to read the play personality thing. That's like one of my favorite things. It's in here. More about playing.
You guys have a book?
That feels restful.
Yeah.
This book that Brooke's printed for us. Yes.
Yeah, we have tons of resources out on our website. You can go out to the mycounselor.online or the joshspurlock.com. We just launched, see our friend Ellie back here, she's recording. We just launched some platforms to take some of this content and put it in short videos to make it a little digestible forms. And so you can find us at Josh and Cassie out on all the major platforms, and you'll see stuff like this and other good stuff too. Yeah.
And when you see us, say hi. Oh, I was just saying, when you see us on Sunday, say hi.
I mean, my Christian counselor online is you guys are, how many clients did you say that you guys have?
About 1,000 a month.
Yeah, 1,000 a month, and so many, and a lot of Foursquare people, a lot of Foursquare are missionaries throughout the world.
Yep.
So anyways, I just thank you for all the ways you're investing in leaders and in people, and you blessed us, and can we just pray for you guys?
Please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lord, we pray for Josh and Cassie and all the different irons in the fire that they have, plans that they have, their kids that are off, growing and leading their own families. We just pray a blessing over them as they're doing what they're doing. Lord, just pray that you'd increase, bring them amazing counselors to join the team to be able to serve even more people. So Lord, be with them, walk with them as they do what they do. We are so happy that we get to be the body of Christ together.
Yes.
And bring your kingdom. Pray that would happen. In Jesus' name.
Amen.